You ever catch your kids staring out the window at school when they're supposed to be, learning about fractions or something?
Yeah, we've all been there.
Or maybe they're doing homework and it just takes forever because they can't seem to stay focused. Their mind's wandering all over the place.
Absolutely.
Well, good news, you're definitely not alone. And the even better news, we've got some really effective strategies to help you sharpen their focus so they can actually thrive in school.
Right. This is not about blaming anyone. It's about understanding how we can help our kids overcome these attention challenges.
Exactly. And that's exactly what we're diving into today. We've got tons of practical, research-backed advice to help you make a real difference.
We're talking better grades, for sure, but also just making learning more enjoyable for your kid.
Exactly. And we've gone through a ton of research to bring you the best stuff out there. We'll be looking at how things at home, like the environment, can actually affect their concentration, plus some really cool and engaging ways to make learning stick.
Oh, and we can't forget about positive reinforcement. That's huge. And of course, working with their teachers.
Like having a whole team on your side.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So to give you a roadmap of where we're going, we'll start by understanding what these attention challenges look like in kids. Then we'll move on to creating a home environment that promotes focus. Then we'll look at some super engaging ways to make learning fun.
We'll also cover positive reinforcement, which is always a good reminder. And finally, we'll wrap up with how important it is to work with your child's teachers.
Perfect.
Okay, so let's start with really understanding what these attention challenges look like in kids. How do we even know if it's an actual issue?
Yeah, the first thing is to really pay attention to their behavior. Do they have trouble concentrating? Are they always daydreaming? Do they struggle to follow instructions, even if they're pretty simple?
Like if you ask them to put their shoes away and then grab their backpack, do they just stand there looking confused?
Exactly. Or maybe they start things but never finish them, or they're constantly forgetting what they were doing.
And it's easy to just brush it off, like, oh, kids will be kids, they're easily distracted. But it sounds like we need to look a little deeper and maybe even consider what their teachers are seeing.
Oh, absolutely. Teachers have a different perspective, right? They see our kids in a structured environment, like during class, so they can spot patterns of inattention that we might miss at home.
Mhm.
For instance, a teacher might notice that a kid zones out during lessons or has trouble staying on task when they're supposed to be working independently. And there are great resources out there, like Reading Rockets, that highlight the importance of this kind of feedback from teachers.
Okay, so once we start to see these signs, what are some of the things that might be causing these attention challenges? Is it just that they're not trying hard enough?
Well, not necessarily. There can be a bunch of reasons. Some are related to their environment, like what's happening around them at home or their daily routine. Others might be related to their health or development. For example, if their home life is pretty stressful, they might have a hard time focusing because they're always a bit anxious.
Makes sense.
Or something as basic as not getting enough sleep can make a huge difference in their ability to concentrate. And then there are things like ADHD, which definitely plays a role. But it's important to remember that this needs to be diagnosed by a professional, and they might need specific interventions.
So it's really about looking at the whole picture, right? It's not just about them not trying hard enough.
Exactly. That's why it's so important to look at their lifestyle and their daily habits. Are they getting enough sleep? Do they have time to relax and de-stress? Are there certain times of day or situations where their inattention is worse? There are tons of resources, like the CDC, that can help you understand ADHD and these other root causes.
That's good to know. And what about their schoolwork? How do these attention challenges affect their grades and their learning?
Well, it can make things pretty tough for them, unfortunately. If they can't focus, it can lead to a bunch of problems. Unfinished assignments, lower grades on tests, and they might even start to withdraw from class participation. And over time, this can really affect their self-esteem and their whole path in school.
It sounds like it can become this vicious cycle where the more they struggle to focus, the further behind they get, and then they feel even less motivated.
Exactly. And teachers often see this too. They notice that a kid is consistently struggling to keep up with their classmates or making more mistakes in their work. And again, Edutopia has some really great strategies for improving focus in the classroom. So it's really important to identify and address these issues early on.
Okay, so now we have a better idea of what these challenges look like and some of the things that might be causing them. But what can we do about it? What can we do at home to help them focus better?
One of the most important things is creating a home environment that actually supports focus. Think of it as setting the stage for successful learning. And one of the key ingredients is a dedicated learning space, a place that's as free from distractions as possible.
Right, because it's hard to concentrate when there's stuff everywhere and it's noisy. So what does a good study space look like?
Well, ideally, it's a designated spot like a desk in their room or a corner of the living room that's tidy, quiet, and organized. And they should have everything they need right there: pencils, paper, their textbooks, whatever, because clutter actually makes it harder for their brains to focus.
It's like their brain has to work overtime just to filter out all the extra stuff.
Exactly. So picking a quiet and comfy spot is key. And then you want to remove anything that might distract them, like toys, games, extra papers, even posters if they're too visually stimulating. And don't forget about good lighting. That can help reduce eye strain, which can also affect focus.
Okay, all of that makes sense. Now, should parents just set this up for their kids, or should they be involved in the process?
It's way better to involve them. When kids have a say in how their study space is arranged, they feel more ownership of it, and that makes them more likely to actually use it. Reading Rockets has some really good tips on how to create these supportive learning spaces together with your child.
Okay, so a dedicated space is important, but what about the structure of their day? I've always heard that routines are super important for kids.
They are. A consistent routine gives kids a sense of predictability, which can actually reduce anxiety and improve concentration. When they know what's coming next, when it's time to study, eat, relax, it helps them stay focused.
So it's not just about scheduling study time, it's about the whole day having a rhythm.
Exactly. It's about creating stability and order. And just like with the study space, it's good to involve your child in creating this routine. Let them help decide when things happen, not just schoolwork, but also time for fun stuff like hobbies and playtime. There's a lot of research out there showing how routines can really make a difference in attention and concentration.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, when they are studying, how long can they actually focus before they need a break?
That's a good question. It really depends on the kid, but breaks are definitely important. Short, frequent breaks can actually help prevent mental fatigue and give their brains a chance to recharge. The important thing is that these breaks are truly restorative.
So, no screens during breaks.
Ideally, no. Breaks should be less stimulating, more relaxing, maybe some stretching, a quick walk around the house, or some deep breathing exercises. Too much screen time during breaks can actually make it harder for them to focus afterward. It's also a good idea to explain to your child why these types of breaks are important. Help them understand that it's not just about getting a reward, it's a strategy to help them learn better. When they understand that, they're more likely to use their break time wisely.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. Now, let's talk about ways to make learning more engaging, because it seems like if they're actually interested in what they're learning, they'll be more likely to pay attention.
Absolutely. Making learning active and engaging is so important. It's not just about them sitting there passively listening or reading. It's about making them an active participant in their own learning.
So, what are some ways to do that?
Think about hands-on projects, group discussions if they have siblings or friends who can study with them, and educational games. These types of activities are naturally more stimulating and can make learning way more fun. And when they're actively involved, they not only focus better in the moment, but they also understand and remember the information better.
And again, it sounds like giving them choices is important, right? Letting them have a say in what they're learning and how they're learning it.
You got it. Involving them in choosing activities makes a huge difference in their motivation. Let them pick topics they're interested in or formats they enjoy. That sense of ownership can really boost their engagement. Edutopia has a ton of great ideas for keeping students engaged in the classroom, and a lot of those could be used at home, too.
That's great. And what about their interests? Can we use their passions to make learning more appealing?
For sure. When you can connect what they're learning to something they already love, it can make even the toughest subjects more interesting. It's all about finding those natural links.
Can you give us an example?
Okay, let's say your kid is obsessed with dinosaurs. You could use that to teach them math. Have them calculate the size difference between different dinosaurs or figure out how long ago they lived. Or if they love to draw, they could illustrate historical events to help them understand and remember them better. It's about taking abstract concepts and making them concrete and exciting. And Reading Rockets has some awesome ideas for integrating kids' interests into their learning.
That's really cool. Now, what about technology? It's everywhere these days, and kids are drawn to it like magnets. Can we use it to help them focus?
Technology is a tricky one. It can be a great tool for learning, but it can also be a huge distraction. So it's all about balance.
Okay, so how do we use technology effectively without it becoming another distraction?
First, be picky. Choose apps and programs that are appropriate for their age and that actually support their learning goals. Then set clear boundaries and make sure they're using technology for learning, not just entertainment. It's also a good idea to check the apps they're using regularly to make sure they're still educational and appropriate. And maybe most importantly, talk to your kid about screen time. Have open and honest conversations about why you're setting limits. This can help them understand and be more cooperative.
That's great advice. Okay, let's move on to something that I think a lot of parents already know is important: positive reinforcement. How can we use this to help our kids focus better?
Positive reinforcement is so powerful. By creating reward systems, celebrating their progress, and praising their efforts, we can really motivate them to stay focused and do their best.
So let's start with reward systems. What are some good ways to set those up at home?
Reward systems work best when they're done right. The basic idea is to offer incentives when your child completes tasks or shows focused effort during learning. The rewards can be anything: stickers, small toys, extra playtime, choosing a family activity, anything that motivates them. The key is to let them be part of the process. Let them help set goals and choose rewards they're excited about. This makes the whole system more engaging and encourages them to work towards something they want. The CDC has some good advice on using positive reinforcement to manage behavior, and a lot of that applies at home too.
So it's not just about celebrating the big wins, it's about acknowledging all those little steps along the way too.
Exactly. Recognizing those small wins is so important for building momentum and boosting their confidence. It shows them that their effort is noticed and appreciated, and that makes them want to keep going. Celebrate those little victories and make sure to praise their effort, not just the outcome. Talk to them about what they accomplished that day, even if it seems small. And praising their actions specifically can be really powerful.
And just simple praise, how important is that?
Praise is essential. It builds their confidence and makes them want to keep trying. When you acknowledge their effort, their progress, and their perseverance, it motivates them to keep learning and growing. And the best praise is specific. Instead of just saying, "good job," tell them exactly what they did well. Like, "I noticed you really concentrated on that math problem and didn't give up until you found the answer. That's amazing focus." This kind of specific feedback reinforces the behavior you want to see and helps them understand what they did right. And Edutopia has some great resources on how to give effective praise.
That makes sense. It's about being specific and highlighting the effort and the behaviors we want to encourage. Okay, last but not least, let's talk about working with their teachers. How does this collaboration help when it comes to attention challenges?
Working with teachers is so important. It's about creating a team approach where everyone is on the same page and working together to help your child succeed.
So what does good collaboration look like?
It starts with communication. Talk to their teachers regularly. Share your observations, ask about their progress, and talk about any challenges they're facing. Schedule regular meetings, whether in person, over the phone, or even just by email. This way you can discuss strategies, share what you're seeing at home, and work together more effectively. Reading Rockets has some great tips on communicating with teachers effectively.
And by working together, what kind of strategies can parents and teachers come up with?
When you combine your insights, you can come up with personalized strategies that really address your child's individual needs. Maybe it's modifying assignments to break them down into smaller chunks, or trying different learning methods that fit their learning style better, or even making some adjustments to their classroom environment. When everyone understands their needs and is working together, it can make a huge difference. And the CDC has resources on developing these kinds of individualized strategies.
And it's not just a one-time thing, right? It's an ongoing process.
Totally. You need to keep checking in and see how they're doing. Are the strategies working? Do they need any adjustments? It's about being flexible and adapting as your child grows and their needs change. Schedule regular check-ins with their teachers to discuss their progress and make any tweaks to the plan.
Wow, this has been so informative. It's really empowering to know that there are so many things we can do to help our kids.
I agree. By understanding attention challenges, creating a supportive environment at home, using engaging learning strategies, using positive reinforcement, and working with their teachers, you can truly make a difference in your child's focus and their whole experience with learning.
So for everyone listening, I want you to think about which of these strategies really resonated with you. What's one small step you can take this week to try it out? Just that little bit of action can make a huge difference.
Absolutely.
And that's it for today's deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.